When I made a Steam Deck video last week for the Invincible Adam Eve game, I got a comment asking if it was a late April Fool's joke, and of course it wasn't. I just go through my library and what's available and do something I think would be fun. But it got me thinking, what would I make as a joke video? What game is old, simple, and just brain dead easy that you wouldn't even think about whether or not the Steam Deck could play it well? I looked and realized exactly what needed to be done. So today we're diving into Final Fantasy VII. Not Remake Integrate, the PC version of the original 1997 released almost 30 years ago PS1 game. So let's dive right into this wacky bit of nonsense. Let's see if the original Steam Deck can even play the infamous Final Fantasy VII. Spoiler warning, it apparently can't play it that well without mods. As a quick summary, Final Fantasy VII is the 7th mainline entry of Square's Final Fantasy franchise of RPGs. It was the first game to use actual 3D visuals and not the trickery that was done with the Chocobo and airship sequences from Final Fantasy VI on the Super Nintendo. It also blew up in popularity, quickly getting its own subseries of spin-offs, anime, and movies, rivaling games like The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for being considered the greatest video game ever made. And players of the Nintendo Switch release of this game from 6 years ago will be happy to know this Steam release does have the character booster cheats, but it's not really that built in. You technically can access them, but you have to go from the launcher's View Online profile screen, log into your Square Enix members account, and then trigger it from there. It's not just a simple button press in-game. Speaking of that, let's talk about launching this game. Since it's an older title, it has a launcher that comes up when you first boot it up. So you will need to use a mouse mode or the touchscreen to navigate this menu. And what's this, 11 whole frames per second on the launcher? That's not a great sign. Now when you dive into settings here, there are basically no graphic options. You can mod the resolution, activate original graphic mode, and activate linear filtering, but that's pretty much it. Also, by default, you can't even access the game without a keyboard. On the menu you're looking at here, which is before the actual title screen, you have to actually hit the X key on a keyboard to be able to navigate it, either by pulling up a virtual keyboard on the Steam Deck or redirecting the X key to one of the Steam Deck's many extra buttons. And once you actually start it up and get the intro, we get a staggering 15 FPS during the opening FMV with Aerith. And you'd better get used to that 15 FPS because it's going to happen very often. Now moving on to a more serious note, to be honest, the way the frame rate works in this game is ridiculous. Essentially, each type of screen or sequence you can do in Final Fantasy VII has its own set frame rate that it will go to when you go into that type of sequence. Basic exploration, whether that is in normal dungeons or the world map once you gain access to it, locks itself down at 31 FPS. That's right, not 30, 31. It's a little bit weird, but it works fine that way, I guess. Going into battle, however, locks itself back down at 15 FPS, just like the FMVs. Whether you have a full party of characters or it's literally just Cloud versus the 2 Shinra troops during the intro, it is always 15 FPS when you're in a battle. Granted, it's a turn-based game, so it's not like you're at a severe disadvantage this way, but still. And then we get to the really weird part. When you go into any of the menus, or even the battle results screen where characters gain experience and level up, the game will shoot up to 60 FPS. And then it'll drop right back down to 30 or 15 when you leave those menus. This actually wasn't super surprising for me. It reminds me of the GOG re-releases of Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3 from last year. Those games ran at 30 FPS during gameplay, but would shoot up to 60 only during the menus. Now, there are mods that exist to be able to unlock the frame rate and bring everything up to 60 FPS in this game, one of which released just a few years back. But with the vanilla game, a game that released in 2013 and not way back in 97, runs at these weird, constantly changing fixed frame rates. And that's really all I've got for performance, so let's talk about battery life. Running the original Final Fantasy VII here will net you around 3 to 3.5 hours total on the original Steam Deck. This is around the same amount of battery the Nintendo Switch version gives the original Switch model, around 3 to 4 hours. Though the Switch OLED can easily boost that up to around twice what the original Steam Deck can offer. Now, would I recommend this to Steam Deck users? If you're willing to hassle around with some mods, maybe. But to be honest, unless you absolutely need that 60 FPS, the Switch version is a far easier option. More battery life, the cheats are built into it and not tied to an online account, and the frame rates will pretty much be the same with 30 FPS outside of battle and 15 FPS in it. And that's it for today. This actually turned from a little joke idea to something that had a lot of weirdness attached to it. Anyways, I'll be back soon with more Steam Deck videos and Nintendo Switch reviews. As always, thank you for watching and have a great day.